Hello everyone, welcome to my ePortfolio. Starting off on my home page here, in the background behind my name and headline is my graphic metaphor, using technology as a educational resource, not the only educational resource. The purpose of my portfolio is to hopefully get a job as a media specialist or technology teacher in my school district. So that's where the majority of my focus will be, specifically using Charlotte Danielson's framework for teaching. As in Utica Community Schools where I work, these four domains are how every teacher in this district, whether they're teaching in a classroom or teaching technology or in the computer lab, are evaluated. So each one of these domains, you'll see in a little bit, has its own page and some resources, both from my classroom work as well as my master's coursework. I tried to parallel them as much as possible to be as efficient as possible using my master's work as things that I could use in my classroom. So each domain has its own page. We'll go through those in just a second here. Since that's how I'm going to be evaluated, it makes sense that that's how I organize my portfolio. Starting with my About Me page, I have my animation here from Powtoon, links to my resume, certifications, and recommendations pages. Originally, I had these navigation buttons at the bottom as well as in the nesting system up top here for the About Me page, as well as a nesting system for my Danielson model page. But I received some feedback from a few of you as well as some of my neophytes that it was a little bit challenging and a little bit cumbersome for all of that navigation and recommended that it be simplified. So I went through and did just that, and I think it does make the navigation a little bit more streamlined. So just some basic information about my educational background, where I'm currently working, where I've worked in the district in the past, as well as some of my achievements not only as an elementary teacher, but also as a martial arts instructor, as that's where my quote-unquote teaching career first began about 12 or 13 years ago. So moving on to my resume page. Originally, I was unsure whether I wanted to use scribe windows or make the file downloadable through a PDF. And someone simply said, there's no reason you can't do both. So that's what I chose to do. Again, making it a little bit easier. If they just want to look at it, they can. If they want to download it and print it and have a copy for their records, they can do that as well. At the bottom, once they're finished scrolling, there's a button that'll take them to the other pages within that section. Something I wanted to try, and actually got some very good feedback from one of my neophytes about how they found that to be very, very helpful. So instead of having to scroll back and try to figure out what the next page was, the button for the next page, at least the next page in that section, is at the bottom of the page. So moving on to my certificates and recommendations. Again, just some image screenshots. If you click on them, they will open in another window, so you have a better view of them. All of them open in a separate tab or separate window, so they don't X out of this by mistake and lose my ePortfolio. Again, all downloadable as well. They can navigate to the bottom of the page, go back to the resume, go back to About Me. But we're going to move on to the Danielson model. The Charlotte Danielson framework for teaching, again, how all teachers in my school district are evaluated, as well as anyone in an interview will probably be evaluated using very similar criteria because that's what they're looking for their teachers. So each domain has its own page, and each page is broken down or organized using the 5 or 6 different objectives for each domain. And I have some narrative as well as some different artifacts from my classroom work as well as my coursework showing how those goals have been accomplished. So domain 1, planning and preparation, a little bit of narrative or images or artifacts when appropriate about how I've accomplished each one of these objectives in my classroom. So I've got an image of one of my lesson plan books. I keep them all digitally because it makes it easier to transfer from year to year than having to try to write it, as well as making adjustments and corrections. You know, as teachers, we're always modifying our lesson plans, and when we wrote them down, it was full of erase marks and arrows and post-it notes. This seems to work a little bit better for me, helps me keep my everything that I need in one place. What materials I'm using, what's the standard that I'm covering, what's the objective, what day of instruction am I on, so I can see how much time is spent on each standard. I'm looking at some of the different resources that we have to use, and not only that I know that they're existing in our district, that our district pays for these, but that I'm using them. All of these will take you to the respective sites if you want to visit Discovery Education, BrainPop. This is a SlideShare. I use SlideShare a lot for my PowerPoint presentations, so they're not filling up my hard drive. I can store them electronically on the site. This is one of my unit presentations, or I should say pre-unit presentations, to introduce the topics that I'm going to be talking about in the coming weeks or months. So just going through some of the different colonization topics and things that my students will be studying. We look at this prior to the unit. Some example of some work that I've created. So I've got some assessments, both the general education assessment as well as the slightly modified for my students that maybe need a little bit more support, whether they are special education students or 504 students, as well as students who are learning center students but need a lot more support. So I have some differentiated assessments. I've got some classroom materials that I've created for the students. Again, designing coherent instruction that's directly tied to the standard. Created a fake Facebook page when we're doing case studies of explorers, and the 4 things that they need to look at when they're studying explorers are their goals, their motivations, the obstacles that they face during their exploration, as well as the consequences or results. So this is tied directly to the standard. I have a link to an instructional design unit. Again, this will take you to a YouTube video that I created for a previous course. Again, utilizing all of the different, or some of the different technological artifacts I've created, not only in my classroom, but from some of our coursework as well. Scrolling down to the other domains, I can get to my second domain, classroom environment. Again, I tried to limit the narrative. A few of you did make mention of that, and I tried to limit it as much as possible without taking away from the effectiveness of the information I was presenting. Another piece of feedback that 2 of my neophytes mentioned is because it's in columns, originally 2A, for example, and 2B were lined up. However, C was here, D was a little bit higher. So they mentioned that I should line those up a little more, and I do think it definitely makes it a lot more organized and easy to see. Just some pictures in my classroom that goes with managing procedures, managing behaviors, how I organize the physical space in my room. When they're done reading it and scrolling through it, they can either go back to the previous domain or the next. Again, just some different artifacts, some images from my classroom of things that I've created, things that I've done, some links to some different technological-based resources that we use. This is actually a link to an instructional design unit that I've created through another Weebly site. Geography is something that is not directly in my standards. However, some geography aspects come up throughout the year. So this is something that they actually can go online and pace through. There's songs and games and websites to look for information. Okay, they know they're going to have an in-class quiz. All the information they have is here. Once they've all gone through it, they let me know they've all gone through it. I'll give them the assessment and they can take it, as well as ask me questions on it. So this can go, whether they're doing it themselves or their parents, this will go directly to my school email. So again, just another use of technology and how I've used it to benefit my instruction. Because if I want to get a job in the technology department or in the media department, it's obviously something that I've got to be able to be proficient at. So into my final domain, professional responsibilities, again, some narrative describing how I've accomplished the objectives that the district wants us to accomplish. Whether it's through screenshots, we use Remind, so the parents can visit remind.com. Created some online professional development, some board builder for teachers, just a website that houses a lot of slide shares that I've created to help the teachers utilize one of the instructional resources through Discovery Education. One of the requirements or jobs of a media specialist teacher in the elementary, not every year, but most years, is to introduce and support using different technology-based resources in the classroom and helping teachers understand what those are. So I created this actually as something for one of our previous courses, but it's also something that I felt I could utilize in future interviews, because if it's something that the media center teachers have to do and I can already show that I can do it, hopefully that will give me a leg up on some of the competition. Just some different slides. I taught a martial arts class to our after-school fitness club. We ran a 5K with some of the students and some of our coworkers, and some fundraisers that I've participated in, which didn't end well for me, clearly being duct taped to the wall. So again, at the bottom, they can go to any of the other domains if they wish, just to help the navigation a little bit. Moving on to my literature review. I chose the health effects of screen time because if you're going to be teaching students how to use technology appropriately, I think all students are, because they're growing up with it, are being able to use the technology very efficiently. However, we all know that a lot of them, especially young people and adults as well, I'm sure we all deal with these same things, there are effects of too much screen time. When the kids spend all their time on technology or in front of the television or on the phones or computers, that there are some effects that can come of that. Technology is a great resource, but we have to make sure it's used appropriately. So that's why I chose to do my literature review on this, because if I'm teaching students how to appropriately use technology, it's good that I know all of the the benefits, but as well as effects that can happen because of overuse. So that's why I chose to do my literature review on this topic, so they can go and scribe through it if they choose. Moving on to my content page. Originally, it was just the contact form here. My principal, who took my subject matter expert survey, thought it would be a good idea to add all of my contact information, cell phone, multiple emails. So they can also contact me here. Again, showing my graphic metaphor in the background, technology as one of many educational resources, not the only one. And that's it. So thank you for viewing my video, and I look forward to viewing your ePortfolios as well.